I lied to land my dream job. Now I'm Googling my way through meetings and barely sleeping. I faked the skills, got the title, and smiled through the panic. But after one mistake on a client call, everything cracked, and I had to ask, was I chasing success or lying to survive? I just wanted a way out of my old job, of the tiny cubicle that smelled like reheated fish and crushed dreams, of being micromanaged by a guy who used phrases like circling back in casual conversation. I'd been stuck for years, underpaid, overworked, passed over every review cycle with a "you're doing great but the budget" shrug. So when I saw the job listing, it felt like fate. Big title, huge pay bump, remote flexibility, a role I almost qualified for if you squinted hard enough. They were looking for someone with 5+ years of strategic brand consulting experience and proficiency in Adobe Creative Suite, Power BI, and high-level stakeholder communications. I had maybe half of that. Okay, less than half. But I'd built a decent portfolio. I'd worked with clients, and I had seen a few dashboards before. So I made a choice. I reworded. I rephrased. I stretched the truth until it snapped into place. Led cross-functional strategy sessions. Sat in on a few chaotic Zoom calls. Developed client-facing pitch decks. Helped fix typos in PowerPoint. Advanced Excel plus data visualization experience. I once made a colorful pie chart. It wasn't a full lie. It was just the boldest version of the truth I could get away with. And then I got the offer. At first it felt like I'd leveled up. New laptop. Welcome swag box. Slack channels with names like #random and #growthgurus. My boss called me a rock star in our onboarding call. I smiled through it all. I took screenshots of the welcome email. Posted a humble brag on LinkedIn. My friends texted me, "You're killing it." But underneath? Panic. Because by day 3, I was already in meetings where I didn't understand a third of the jargon. People threw around acronyms like they were confetti. QBRs, MQLs, UX audits, CAC to LTV ratios. Someone asked me to pull the last 6 months of sentiment data and compare it to our churn delta. I smiled, nodded, and Googled every single word as soon as the call ended. Turns out delta wasn't about airlines. I started waking up with a pit in my stomach. Not dread, fear. Fear of being found out. Fear of the next email. Fear that someone would look at me, squint, and say, "Wait, you don't know what that means?" I lived in that fear. Every Slack message made my heart race. Every calendar invite felt like a trap. I kept browser tabs open with articles like Data Storytelling for Beginners and What is Customer Journey Mapping for Real. I watched YouTube tutorials during lunch. Stayed up past midnight tweaking decks for meetings I didn't feel qualified to attend. One day someone said, "Your presentation last week? So polished. Total pro." I smiled and said thank you. Then went into the bathroom and nearly threw up. Because none of this felt sustainable. I wasn't just playing catch-up. I was sprinting in a race I didn't train for, with a crowd cheering and no idea where the finish line was. The first real crack showed up during a Tuesday sync with a new client. It was my job to walk them through the first round of their brand audit, something that, on paper, I knew how to do. I'd watched my manager do it before. I had templates. I'd spent hours prepping my notes. But 20 minutes into the call, the client asked, "Can you walk us through how you weighted these benchmarks?" I froze. I'd copied the benchmarks from a shared internal doc, added some buzzwords, changed a few colors. I didn't know how they were weighted. I didn't even know they were supposed to be. "Great question," I said, buying time. "Let me pull that up." I clicked around, pretended to scroll, tried to remember any shred of logic I could explain out loud. Then I said something vague, about competitive positioning and industry averages and qualitative signals. It sounded convincing enough. The client nodded. My boss smiled. The moment passed. But I knew. I got lucky. And I couldn't depend on luck much longer. The days after that were a blur of fake confidence and full-body anxiety. I built presentations in Canva and prayed no one asked for the raw data. I nodded through meetings where everyone seemed to speak in code. I repeated phrases I heard smarter people use, hoping it made me sound like I belonged. I lived in Google Docs and dread. The worst was the Slack DMs. "Hey, can you run point on the next competitive analysis? Do you have a pulse on our Q2 engagement drop? Mind looping in our attribution metrics?" I started answering hours late just to buy time. Started replying with, "Let me circle back after I dig in," then scrambling to figure out what the hell I was supposed to dig into. And every time I opened my mouth I wondered, is this the moment they realize I don't belong here? I tried to ask for help once. Not with a neon sign, just casually. I messaged a senior strategist and said, "Hey, do you have a cheat sheet or crash course on how you approach metrics reviews?" She replied with a smiley face and a Notion doc that was 17 pages long. And she said, "You'll pick it up fast. You're clearly a natural." I wanted to scream. Because natural was the worst thing someone could call me. It meant I was convincing, not competent. Things boiled over in a cross-functional meeting. We were reviewing campaign outcomes. Everyone had their numbers ready. I had slides, charts, colors, but no real grasp of the why. Someone asked, "What do you make of the spike here in week 3? I stared at the graph. I didn't know. I had no idea. My throat went dry. I said something like, "We think it correlates with a shift in platform engagement following the second creative cycle." It was a total guess. No one questioned it. But I did. Because I was starting to believe something worse than, "I'm going to get fired." I was starting to believe I deserved to. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I thought about quitting. I imagined the email. "Thank you for the opportunity, but this role isn't the right fit." But quitting meant admitting I wasn't good enough. That I lied. That I couldn't rise to the occasion. So instead, I made a list. Things I still didn't understand. Terms I hadn't mastered. Skills I'd pretended to have. It filled 2 pages. And I stared at it for a long time and thought, if they ask me tomorrow, I'll have to admit it. I'm not who I said I was. I knew it was coming the second I hit share screen. It was a quarterly strategy presentation for a major client. Our biggest one. A 7-figure account. A call with 10 people on it, including our CEO, their VP of marketing, and my boss who had been hyping me up all week. "She's a killer strategist," he told the team. "Wait till you see how she reframed the funnel metrics." I smiled when he said it, even though I had no idea what reframed the funnel actually meant. So I smiled, and nodded, and stayed up until 2 a.m. the night before trying to build something that looked like it belonged in a boardroom. And now here I was, smiling on camera, voice shaking slightly, narrating a slide about customer acquisition costs and lifetime value. Except I had switched the two. CAC was labeled LTV and vice versa. No one said anything at first. Then someone on the client side asked, "So wait, your CAC is higher than the average revenue per user? That doesn't make sense." I froze. My boss leaned forward. "Oh, are those reversed on the slide?" Silence. I muttered, "Oh, yeah, looks like it. Good catch." I laughed. No one else did. I fumbled my way through the rest of the deck, but it didn't matter. The mood had changed. The confidence in my voice? Gone. The praise I'd been earning? Quiet. That afternoon, my boss DM'd me, "Can we chat real quick?" I sat in the Zoom waiting room for 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. When he came on, he smiled, but it wasn't his usual hype man grin. It was tight. Managerial. "Rough call," he said. I nodded. "I know. Can I ask, how comfortable are you with the data side of this role?" That was it. Not aggressive. Not accusing. Just pointed. And all I could think was, this is it. This is the moment I get found out. I opened my mouth. And I lied again. I think I just got thrown off. I usually double-check, but I rushed this one. He nodded slowly. "You've been doing a lot. Let's get you some support. Maybe loop you in with our senior analyst next time." Support. That was generous. Because I didn't need support. I needed a miracle. I got off the call and stared at myself in the Zoom camera reflection. Flushed cheeks. Messy bun. Eyes tired in a way concealer doesn't fix. And all I could think was, how did I get here? I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to be fake. But I'd created this version of myself that looked good on paper, and now I was stuck living up to her every day. A woman who knew everything. Who could reframe metrics and own meetings and use words like channel attribution without flinching. I wasn't her. And trying to be was destroying me. That night, I texted a friend. Someone who worked in tech, someone smart, someone I always assumed knew what she was doing. I told her everything. The lie on the resume. The stress. The screw-up. She replied, "Half the people in these jobs are winging it. Some of them just do it with better lighting and louder voices." Then she added, "You're not the first person to bluff their way into a job. But you might be the first to care this much about getting it right." I stared at that for a long time. Because she wasn't wrong. I did care. Too much. So much that I was willing to lose sleep, cry silently between meetings, and twist myself into a pretzel just to live up to a LinkedIn version of me I barely recognized anymore. I didn't quit right away, because quitting felt like failure, like admitting I didn't belong, like proving everyone right, even if no one had actually called me out yet. So I stayed. But everything after that call felt different. Not just because I'd made a mistake, but because something inside me had cracked. The pretending, the constant tightrope walk, it stopped being thrilling. It just felt exhausting. Every meeting, every Slack message, every deck, it was like dragging a fake version of myself into the room and hoping no one noticed the strings. And I started to ask a question that scared me even more than, what if I get caught? What if I don't want this job at all? I wasn't sleeping. Not in the tossing and turning way. I mean, I would lie awake until 3 a.m. with that tight, jittery feeling in my chest, running through every task I hadn't finished, every metric I didn't understand, every moment someone might have raised an eyebrow on a call. My body was always in fight or flight. Only there was no fight, no chase, just deadlines. I created a career I was afraid to live inside. The breaking point came during a 1:1 with a newer coworker. She was bright, energetic, 2 months in. We were paired to work on a pitch together. Halfway through our call, she said, "Honestly, I'm still figuring out what half of this even means. But I'm hoping I'll catch up." And she laughed. Just like that. No shame. No panic. No spinning. She said she didn't know something and it didn't destroy her. I couldn't stop thinking about that afterward. Because when I didn't know something, I didn't laugh. I spiraled. Because I wasn't learning. I was surviving. I spent a weekend unplugged. No Slack. No laptop. No pretending. And I made 2 lists. What I thought this job would be. Creative freedom. Smart people. New challenges. Growth. What it actually was for me. Constant fear. Masking. Anxiety. Isolation. Then I wrote the hardest question at the bottom of the page. If they offered this job to you again, knowing everything, would you say yes? I stared at it for a long time. And for the first time since I'd hit send on that resume, I said no. So I drafted the email. Not with drama. Not with bitterness. Just honesty. After reflecting on the role and the version of it I've been showing up for, I've realized I haven't been leading from a place of clarity or confidence. I've learned a lot, but I've also come to understand this role isn't the right fit for me, or the person I want to become professionally. I sent it Monday morning. My hands shook, but after it was done, I exhaled. For the first time in months. They took it well. Kind even. My boss said he appreciated the work I'd done. That he wished I'd spoken up sooner. And you know what? So did I. Because the shame I was carrying wasn't just about lying to them. It was about lying to myself. About the kind of career I wanted. The kind of pressure I could handle. The kind of life I wanted to build. I thought ambition meant saying yes to everything, even the stuff that didn't fit. But real growth? It's knowing when to step back and say, this isn't for me. Even if it looks shiny. Even if everyone else thinks it's impressive. I don't have a flashy next chapter yet. I picked up some freelance work. I sleep more. I eat breakfast before checking my email. I'm learning on purpose now, not in a panic. And most importantly, I'm telling the truth, not just on my resume, but in how I talk about my limits, my learning curves, my worth.